for people to reflect and see. It reminds people of what their attitudes are and say, oh, I never really thought about that before. Oh, I didn't know that I had some preconceived notion about someone. So I think that's one good thing from the survey, because what the survey showed me is that even from 2001 to today, attitudes are moving in the right direction. They're not exactly where we would want them to be if there were a perfect world, but it does show that, and sometimes by reading surveys, you are reminded, you look in the mirror at yourself, and you're reminded what your issues or what your prejudices are. So I think that's one good thing about the survey.
No, I just for clarification, if we sort of rearrange the room a little bit, and this was a room full of African Americans, that would not have been my message. Oh, okay. If it was a room of Hispanic Latinos, I would not be making that message.
You're saying that because you know
I'm saying you.
I'm
saying what you and what Antonia have dedicated your life work to doing was essential, is essential, and it's going to be essential when we're all dead.
Right.
But it's sort of the Asian American, sort of not so much.
Okay.
You know?
I understand.
The other thing that I guess I wish I'd said was that when I look at almost any form of hatred, or not hatred, bigotry, ignorance, intolerance, and then when I look in our society, and then when I look at the younger generation, the generation of my kids. And I see a lot of these problems. They're not going to go away ever, but they're going to go way, way, way down. And that we've got a generation coming along that I think are as close to colorblind as we are ever going to see. Right. I mean, and when I look at just look at the experiences of my kids and their friends. When we're gone and they're in charge, this is going to be a better world. And so I'm very, 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 very hopeful.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Not that I want to die soon.
Let me turn now to the questions that all of you have. Let's start with one. Someone has asked a question about latent or unconscious bias. And let me ask what your view is of that. Now that we have had such a sea change in racial attitudes in the past couple of generations, and we know that being openly bigoted is not right. It's not socially acceptable to use the N-word or to tell an ethnic joke in the boardroom and so on. Is there a possibility, though, that the type of bias has changed? Let me give you an example that many Asian Americans and many others know well from personal experience. It's the compliment that, well, it tells us something more than the speaker realizes. When they come up to you and they say, "My, you speak English so well," and they express such great surprise. I always reply, "Gee, thanks, so do you." What do we think of that possibility that the type of bias that we now see is different? It's latent, unconscious, unexpressed, or it's framed in a different way. Why don't we ask all three of the panelists going in reverse order, starting with Mr. Cook.
I think that when overt, blatant racism and discrimination is no longer a major problem, then you worry about subconscious or unconscious. And then someday you don't even have to worry about that. But I think it's all sort of a pipeline. And that I think we've sort of, at least certainly in the Asian American community, moved beyond to a great deal of overt, blatant racism or discrimination. But what follows is, okay, well, let's worry about subconscious or unconscious. And I'm not saying, and then gradually that kind of fades to, well, there's just some moron over there. But I think it's all sort of part of a cycle, almost like a pipeline. And that because you no longer have to worry about this so much, then you worry about this. and then eventually you don't even have to worry about this. But I think it's all part of a progression. I mean, the thing is, if there's overt, blatant discrimination going on, then you're not so much worried about the unconscious or subconscious because you're worried about the blatant obvious. So look, we don't live in a perfect world, and we're never going to live in a perfect world. But it's just I don't think you've got a lot to worry about in that area. But maybe I'm just seeing it through different eyes.
Well, the word bias has a negative perception. We all have biases. We all have preferences. It's when the bias is used in a way that's harmful and that generalizes. And I think that from a Latino and Asian community perspective, we all get those comments. Oh my God, you speak English so well. Well, hell, I went to the same university as you did, right? Or
maybe better.
Or better. And I think, that the model minority put on the Asian community is overall positive, but there's some negative connotations that come with that too. The expectations that you are supposed to behave in a certain way. I think that for me, the best way to deal with the subconscious stereotypes is to really, once again, and I know I'm harping on it, is to engage in conversation. The gentleman that came to talk about the census, I'm obsessed with the census because to me census means power and money and getting everyone to participate. I cut my teeth in redistricting litigation. And any individual that does not vote, to me, has no right to whine or complain. Those are our obligations. So I think that by our actions and our interactions with different folks is the best way to deal with subconscious or conscious discrimination, because you're not going to be able to do it any other way.
I would agree with what Antonia said. I mean, what you get in African American community a lot is that you're very clean and you're very articulate, and those are the words, those are the words that are used, right? And you basically say thank you, but sometimes I do remind my friends from different ethnic groups when they do things like that I say, well, would you say the same thing to Charlie Cook? And then that gets them thinking, as to whether or not it was the right thing to say. And I don't say it in a mean way, but it comes with what Antonio said, just in terms of your interaction and you're getting to know other folks better. And a lot of times, people who say that, they don't mean any harm at all. They have just not as sensitive as I might be. So those are my comments.
Might also be that Charlie isn't as clean and articulate as you are.
And I don't mean to be picking on Charlie, but he just happens.
No, look, let me just, I think everybody in this room has probably experienced something like this, but my wife and I were at a dinner party in Potomac, Maryland a few months back, and there was not an Asian, an African American, a Latino person in the whole room, okay? And this one father was bragging that his daughter was in an advanced math class that was almost 70% Asian. Now, when that's the kind of ethnic stereotyping that you're the subject of, don't worry about it. I mean, this guy was bragging. My kid's so smart, that's who he's in with.
But let me interject on that one because...
I'd like to.
Because, for us who come from California and Southern California, San Marino is a perfect example where that stereotype has been taken to an extreme. And the tensions that come from the fact that, the magnet courses are being, inundated by Asian Americans and that there's not enough room for the rest of us. And I have even heard people, which, Charlie, you will love this one, they're beginning to recognize the value of affirmative action because they might need it. So, I think, that once again, it's trying to judge individuals based on an individual character and their personality and getting away from this. And I would say, that finding commonality is the most important factor moving forward to really getting out of this economic mess and moving forward as a country, because we have a lot to show the world. We might be a mess, but it's the best mess in the universe. Our freedom, entrepreneurship, all of the things that make us a great country. And what we need to do is recognize those attributes in everyone and not make it exclusive to one group of people or another.
Okay, let me follow up with another